From X Team, and today is KMFCast episode 9. This is all things React. Really excited about this one because I have 3 React developers here at X Team, and we're going to be diving into a lot of really great stuff, kind of the current state of React. We're going to go over some common problems that developers run into. But what I think is going to be really interesting is we're going to be looking into the new stuff, React 18, stuff that's in beta now and, will eventually not be in beta. And I want to just talk to some real developers, real React developers about that, to get their opinions. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our X-Teamers. We've got John Carlos in here. Hey there.
Hey, Caleb.
We got Francisco.
Hello, world.
Hey. We got Ivan working off 4G right now. So I think
Hi,
we'll
what's
be
up?
all right. Hey, man.
And no power,
So, yeah.
just a ring light.
That's right. Making it work. You look great. But yeah, I mean, maybe in the order that I brought you in, John, Francisco, and then Ivan, maybe just kind of tell us, a little introduction about yourself. And then, like I said, I always like to ask developers, we're talking about today, React, obviously, just kind of how long you've been working with React and that kind of thing. So if you want to take it away, that'd be awesome.
Oh, great. So I guess I go first.
Yeah.
So my name is Gian Carlos. I'm a senior software engineer here at X Team, and I've been working with React for quite a while now, like almost 4 or 5 years. So I was basically since React, where we're developing components with classes, and all the code was a little bit messy. And then when the things got cleaner, hooks got introduced, and functional components were the main things. But yeah, it's been a ride, right? Since I joined React. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Francisco, same question?
I have almost the same time as Giancarlos. I think that the developers that have the experience with classes, they are almost with the same time with React because it's like React 14 or 15, something like that.
Yep.
I started my interest in React like watching some of the videos from Dan Abramov, and I was amazed with the new mentality and how Facebook wanted to approach the composition, and that's when all started, and it's happening like a roller coaster because there are new things to learn always, and it's exciting, but sometimes it's like, oh, I need to change my approach. But I'm really excited to see what React has for us in the future, and that I'm really happy to be here and to share my experience.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for being here. And Ivan, same question. If you want to introduce yourself and just tell us how long you've been working with React.
Yeah, I started as an Angular engineer. Actually, that's how I started on single page applications. But I left for some months to work on another project as a backend / DevOps. And since I like frontend, I got some tasks on doing some small apps to test APIs. And they say, hey, why don't you use React? I said, why not? Just simple apps. And I never looked back. I decided right after finishing this project that I wanted to follow this path because I really like its philosophy. I really like the way things are composable and allows this amazing ecosystem around it. So yeah, I decided to go.
Mm-hmm. Iva comes from the dark side.
Yeah.
Let me throw our topics up on the screen here. So and I thank you so much for introducing yourself. And so let's go ahead and jump into it and start getting into the meat of things. Our first kind of topic, talking about the architectural patterns, and probably jumping in here, as the card says, into atomic design within React. anyone that kind of wants to take that away, Francisco, John Carlos, Ivan, anyone that wants to jump into that and just kind of talk a little bit about, your experience, your opinions, take it away.
Well, I will start. Well, you know that React is opinionated relating to how you can structure your application. They open the world for you and your creativity for that. And for some developers, it's like a really scary world because it's like, I don't know where to start or if I'm doing things right or wrong. But there is no right or wrong. It's what works best for you and for your project. So this idea is one of the ideas that wants to help to you to structure the let's say the project in a way that you can see from design the smaller pieces and start building pieces together, and it's like a Lego. You put these two together and then you have let's say like a better component or a component that that has different components, and that is like grow from the small pieces to the bigger pieces. And I don't know what else you want to add.
Yeah, so I would like to add to that. So atomic design in React. So we take this for granted today. Since at least for me, this is how I develop my components in React. I try to make them as atomic as possible, without any like I always forget that the term that is without modifying anything outside of the component. For example, if I pass some props to a component or some values that I need to use in that component, then I make sure that that nothing changes that value. That we are just using it to show it to the user, to show the data to the user, and always making sure that if we pass something to that component, then it will always return the same thing. So that's what I say, that we take this for granted today, since a lot of developers or a lot of engineers, front-end engineers, usually that's how they structure their front-end. So I wanted to say that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, I was one who brought this topic to the
That's right.
And the only yes, I just like John. This is my go-to checker design. Whatever I have a choice, I'll choose one. And I like the way it forces us to make our components reusable. Also, there's no issue with organizing this short title molecules organization pages. Like domain dates or something. To abstracting the source he had experience in yes, there are plenty of large scale proprietary production they use
Yeah. Hopefully Ivan can make it back. We'll look for him. But yeah, he is having some technical difficulties running off 4G. But so I see while I try to work on getting him back, I see a comment that I want to bring up, and this is a nice part about this going live, is that we can kind of put up comments, kind of in real time. So I wanted to see if you two can kind of take a look at this comment and see, have you also had a kind of a bad experience with atomic design on a large scale, or is there things you can do on a large scale to have fewer problems?
I don't know if you would like to go first, Francisco, or what.
I know that one of the biggest problems is dealing with media queries sometimes, because maybe it's a little bit hard when the component, you need to set all the styles in isolation. But when you need, like, for example, to join some different components and then start maybe some custom media queries around them, you need to create like a special, let's say, it's like a special templates for just single cases, and maybe that can be like tedious. And that's one of the problems I have faced using this type of mentality.
I would like to add to that in the fact that, as Mauricio mentioned, when you are working in a larger scale application, you tend to run into, let's say, you are visiting a page, right? And then you face in code, you find 12, 15 components, 30 components, and it tends to be a messy code, because as the pages, or as what we are trying to show grows in complexity, that's also reflects in the amount of component that we are trying to include in a page. But yeah, it's usually tends to be messy. That's why what I also find as a bad experience for me. I remember one application where we have a lot of components, and one day I was trying to refactor the page, and I say, let's leave it at that, and I don't want to take this job.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I'm glad that you guys could kind of jump in there and answer a question in real time. Always like when that happens. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into our next topic. We're talking about forms and client-side validation. And there's a different, couple looks like different ways: final form and React hook form. So if anyone wants to jump in, Ivan, I hope that we were having some problems with your audio, so we'll have to see if it's sustainable or not. But if someone wants to kind of jump in and talk about, kind of any kind of component for that client-side validation, any of these form methods, please take it away.
All right. Are you guys listening to me?
Right now you sound good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. 4G kind of sucks. But yeah. All right. Yeah. I actually I kind of like this topic because we have seen lots of applications doing it the wrong way, if there's such thing in the React world. But one mistake I would like to add, and there are actually libraries that do that, is I'm not really an advocate on storing form in Redux or into any global store. I think it's really something that we can criticize, that React performs operation at each keystroke. We don't want to add more overhead to it by adding forms to Redux, to any kind of Redux store or slice. So I don't know if you guys agree with me, but this is one of the topics I'm going to be opinionated here.
Yeah.
Giancarlo, Francisco, agree with that? Do you, any pushback on that?
Oh no, I think
I actually agree.
In the same.
Yeah.
But for us developers, we know that maybe sometimes forms could be a nightmare, because validation, because JavaScript dealing with types and that, and also maybe some events on Blur and when to validate and that. And this type of libraries make us life easier. I I have really appreciated the way they have evolved with React because we have seen how, for example, from Formic they used to work a lot with render props when where you pass maybe some of the functions or some of the attributes of the form to the children inside the form, but they move it to use, let's say, hooks. It's been like a really good experience seeing these type of libraries evolving with the same React. I think they add value to. It's like we could have like forms manually created, but having this type of library is aggregated value to the team and to the project.
Yeah, I agree. When I discover, for me, the first library of form validation was React Hook Form.
Yeah.
When I discovered the library, I was saying, why are we still writing on change and on blur functions if we can use a more straightforward um, library that will help us to validate all of this, and also in not only in the validation side but also in um, the performance part of the application. Uh, if we were to write our own on change function, um, then we might trigger every render for every single change that a certain component might face in the application, but in the form, sorry. But if we add any of these libraries, form libraries, we are basically improving the performance by a lot, by reducing the amount of re-render that we trigger, and also the way that we access the data is cleaner.
Is there, and this is from someone that I've written a lot of JavaScript in my life, but I have not dabbled in React. Is there a time when you're doing a form and you wouldn't use something like this? Is there a reason to not in 2022?
Not at the moment.
Yes, for
Okay.
full form now. Full
What's that?
form not. Maybe
Okay,
for
yeah.
for something like two fields or something that
Yep.
like that
Right.
requires
Maybe a proof of
specialization, but not
concept.
for a full form.
Yeah, as Francisco said, maybe a proof of concept will be a really good case.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm always curious. When there's something that's very helpful and very convenient, I'm always curious the times when it doesn't make sense. That's a question I always ask on this one. Cool. Well, it sounds like we're all on the same page on that one. And so, unless anyone has anything else, we can certainly move on to CSS modules versus style components. Is our next one. So again, anyone that kind of wants to take us away, please do.
Sure, I can go ahead. For this one, I tend to lean more towards to style components. It is, for me, it's easier, reusable style components. In the end, it helps us developers to reuse these same styles in different part of the application with certain components. Not that CSS modules are bad, like SAS or less, but in terms of the amount of code that we are writing and in the application, then with CSS modules tends to be that you have to have a CSS file and then you have to inject it into the component.
Yep.
While having style components, you write your style component and then you use it in whatever you want.
Well, for me that really depends. I thought components, I like CSS modules, but I tend to only add components when I feel the need of it. For example, if I'm building a UI kit, of course I'm going to style components, hands down, and then that's it. But sometimes for example, to add libraries related to animations. Style components require some overhead, some special rating to in order to apply some things that rely on so sometimes style components can add some overhead to the development, and something that I analyze a lot before choosing. It's just like Redux. I don't just put it right in without first analyzing the requirements.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. Francisco, same thing. Do you have kind of a favorite, a way that you lean?
Well, I prefer style components because for me it's like really easy to inherit styles and to share style between other components. I would like to add that these type of solutions they are great because they help us. Every front-end developer knows that with CSS we have the specificity problem and the scoping problem. The way they fixed this, or maybe the solution they offer, is like for us is don't worry about that and just continue with your CSS. That's like something that we don't need to take care of like anymore, like dealing with maybe this type of nightmares. But one of the things also that, for example, I prefer from style components is the way we can share like our JavaScript state with the styles. Maybe sometimes with CSS model, it's not like that easy, but the way they connect, you can connect props with the styles. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I was actually just going to ask, since we have comments coming in from YouTube and LinkedIn, if anyone had any questions. We actually just got one. I personally haven't heard of this, but have you tried stitches from modules? Is anyone familiar?
I haven't.
No, haven't heard of it.
Me neither.
Interesting. Yeah. Sadly, I don't have anything to add on either. But yeah, something to look into.
Now I have homework.
Yeah,
we all have.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, for anyone listening, although we weren't able to elaborate on that one, anyone that has questions, go ahead and throw them in. We'll try to get them in here. I always like to be able to to kind of either answer questions or just spark more conversation, sort of as we go. But that's interesting. So I'll be looking for those. And then this is I already said it. I think I can't remember if we were live when I said it, but this is the topic that I really wanted to be able to dive into. I think it's like the most interesting thing when you have a kind of an established either programming language or framework or something, is just looking at what the future of that is, especially once you're very comfortable. You've been working with React, as most folks here have been for years. Always excited to see, kind of what's next, what's in beta right now, and what's going to be shaping things moving forward. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into that. We can talk about, I actually don't know if anyone here has already been kind of playing with the beta, or at the very least just kind of been reading over the documentation. I was reading over the some of the new stuff before we jumped on here. So just kind of curious if anyone wants to kind of take us into something you're excited about, something that you've maybe used that was great, and also if there's something that you don't love, something that that you're not a huge fan of. Obviously want to hear that too. But take us away on your thoughts of kind of the React 18 kind of current beta stuff.
Well, I would like to start with this topic because I was really excited when they announced the React 18 version. I went to the documentation. I was like, let me see what I can find. I see most of the improvements that React 18 is going to bring for us. They are like hidden from the developer perspective, because most of them involve optimizations for us, like, but in the background. Let's say we have one of the improvements that this version will bring is the batching, how React is going to batch the updates. for example, this is one of the best improvement I have seen in these years, because and it's like a silent improvement for us, for a developer. It's like, I want to use it, but you won't be like, you don't need to migrate or something like that. It's
Right.
like they are improving performance, for example, when we have different states, different variable for setting states. They want to do all the all the updates in, let's say, the updates that gives problem for us are the ones that happen after a synchronous call, and those kind of objects were the nightmare for us. And for example, if we have two set states in a row, and that will bring, in the current version, that will bring sometimes not a good experience, but it's not sometimes what we expect. But with this update, maybe there could be like a very deterministic way to understand how the thing's going to change. That's what's exciting me most about the React future, because I was like, I want to code, but one of the biggest changes is one of the ones that is like a silent change.
Yeah.
I really think that React 18 is gonna break lots of applications down the wrong way, like relying on race conditions or such, because there's a lot in the internals of the React that's going to change, but without really breaking the contract they have with the developer that's doing the components. So I'm kind of worried, but very excited to see. I didn't test yet. Didn't test the next version, the alpha versions yet, but I really think it's going to be a very important update. But that's going to give us some more to support some applications.
Yeah, boring in the sense that since it's a major one, we don't see a lot of changes. I would say that this is more on the performance side of the library, and this is something that I really like to see. The other day, I remember that I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he told me what was my perspective on the future of React since the downfall on the stock for Meta, Facebook, and I was saying I was thinking about this, and I was saying React is its own thing. Companies has embraced it all over the world. It in the end it doesn't have it doesn't have anything to do with how Facebook is doing financially or whatever. Obviously, React is from Facebook, but I know there are a bunch of developers around the world that would like to take care of these library in case of Meta someday disappearing or something like that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I know that React will continue to be one of the top libraries for developing front end. That is my point of view on the future of React.
Yeah, I mean, React is open source, right?
It is.
Yeah. So right. I mean, even though it is from Facebook or from Meta, right. I think it's so popular now that that I think it would surely still continue for quite some time. Though that is interesting, Ivan. You said kind of that a lot of things will break, which happens with major updates. But from what you've seen, I mean, is there any, obviously just from the normal kind of maintenance of bringing, but are there any tips you have for that you've seen looking over the documentation of just like a smart way to upgrade, or is there just any tips that you would look for, anything specific about React and now React 18 that you want to watch out for when you're bringing a product up to date? That's a question for anyone.
Yeah,
As Ivan
definitely.
said.
I would say, okay. I was, for example, I find some examples of components doing some side effects the wrong way, like depending on set timeouts and get animation frame to do some things after, because it's a little bit more difficult to when the functional components became the de facto standard. Some developers more used to class-based, event-driven design of things. I did some things the wrong way, and I've gone through a lot of those examples. And I'll just recommend to take a short look at React documentation, take a short look at how use memo, use callback, use effects, all the default work, the difference between use effect, use layout effect. I think not trying to use object-oriented logic or even regular JavaScript logic on this React component, pure component plus hooks logic, because it's a little different and it has a steeper learning curve. That's it.
Yeah, Francisco, John Carlos, anything that you can think of, just like that you would make sure that you were looking out for when bringing a product up to speed with from what you've seen?
Yeah, as Ivan said, stop relying on race conditions.
Yeah, fair.
I want to add something that
absolutely.
Maybe we need to mention because it's one of the biggest. You know that we have a React suspense. We have the idea from quite a while, but when I was thinking about React 18, I was like, oh yes, we are going to have the stable version like right away, but no, we still need to wait like for another releases, but in the same React 18. And I think that we need to think also how we are going to deal, for example, now in our developing of React components, and that we think what we need to render when something hasn't arrived or something hasn't finished loading. Maybe from this moment we can start maybe doing some tests with React Suspend, because the change how they say is going to be like pretty straightforward. So my suggestion would be like do some testing, some proof of concepts, and also with the design team, because now we are going to have like a lot of possibilities. For example, using Suspense with some of the React server-side rendering will allow us to maybe have some experience with other components that have already loaded, but we are waiting for another one. So maybe the product owners and also the design team could have great ideas to improve the product. And that would be my suggestion, like to work as a team for what is coming.
Awesome. It's a great suggestion.
Great.
Yeah. So let's move on to testing strategies. We have snapshot, behavior, EDE. What I'm just curious because we can kind of go in a little bit of different direction, but it's sort of similar to some of the other questions we've had before, just to kind of opinions on your kind of favorite way to approach those things. There are different ways to do it, and again, I always like to hear kind of the use cases in which you do one versus the other and that kind of thing. So. And just always, I'm always looking out for the junior developers too. If there's, any tips along the way of just, something you knew when you were getting into, making sure that your test strategies were on point. But yeah, if anyone wants to take it away in kind of any direction they want to go with this, please do.
Yep. I would like to start on this one.
Absolutely.
So test strategies on whatever library that you are using should be like one of the things that you have to think about once you are developing something. I don't know if anyone here uses TDD, but I'm usually go for that route, and I will try to drive my components based on the test that I'm writing. So snapshots component, snapshot. When I go and use the snapshots while testing, what I'm trying to test here is what is being rendered in the HTML. What is the actual HTML being thrown in the browser? Uh, am I expecting something there that shouldn't be there, or am I expecting what I actually wrote in the code? Um, so I usually tend to. I was reading the other day. Kenzie Dats. I don't know if you have read anything from him, but he's well versed in the testing world, um, and he was basically using enzyme to test his component, and then he threw it all away to use the React testing library, since the way that he was testing the components with enzyme was not representative of what he wanted to test. He said that while using enzyme, you make sure that you are receiving the props in a component, that you are uh, processing the props or whatever variable you have in the component is being processed as expected. Uh, you are not testing what the user is actually seeing, what the browser is actually reading. Um, so when he went to move away from an enzyme and applied the React testing library, he noticed that uh, this change in mentality, that you instead of um, testing what programmatically would be that you want to test, you are actually testing the component in the browser, not and what the user is actually seeing.
You're definitely right. When I started on React, Enzyme was kind of becoming the standard, but it allowed things such as reading states from components, and I think it didn't. I like things that force users to do the right thing, force developers to do the right thing, and what you call this? Yeah, this is an incorrect, in my opinion, form of testing, which is testing the implementation. And I think I like how React testing library evolved to a path where you use stat IDs, regular names of buttons and stuff, so you can test things, test behaviors like the user would add, without caring about what state or what proper is the components getting. So yeah, I used the enzyme for a couple of years, but I moved back to testing library as soon as I figured out that my tests were really useful. I got some good test coverage, but and also you don't need to actually have this kind of test when you just change the implementation to fix a bug. You have to rewrite your tests. So that means you're not really testing anything. What we should care is what gets in the component and what the component shows, or what behavior it allows the user. So that's those are the ones I call behavior tests. And yeah, I agree on that.
Yep.
Awesome. Francisco, what do you think? Kind of on the same page?
Yes, I would like to add some things. For example, also the test strategy should be taught with the business part of an application, because what we want to achieve. For example, some of the teams want to achieve 100% coverage. Other teams want to achieve, like, to cover the most important part of the user experience. And we need to in a team, we need to be clear what we want. And for example, I had the experience that we were having like a lot of problems with tests, and we were migrating for like trying to remove the snapshot strategy, because they weren't adding value to what the product was. And they can add value to specific parts, but we don't want like to use snapshots just for using snapshots. So also in these days, I've been learning that, for example, end-to-end test can help us to also mitigate some of the important problems of cybersecurity in our pages, because there are some user behavior and maybe some user dealing with the page in a specific browser, or maybe dealing with specific UI components that we can mitigate some, let's say, some open problems that we could have that can lead the user to manipulate our site or things like that. In my experience, I really like behavior testing, because we don't want to know what is happening with the state in every. We want to in every step. We want to know that if the user does something, the user is going to expect something as a result, and I think that that's something that adds value quickly to the business logic. And maybe also the end-to-end test can help us to for example, to focus on specific parts of one page that can be really important. For example, registration or a card checkout. Those are kind of things that maybe having a behavior test can cover the whole perspective. So this is when the end-to-end testing could be like really helpful with things that matters the most for a company. For example, the login or the checkout, because that's what bring money to an app. So my suggestion is that we should be aware of what we want to achieve before doing tests. That's what I could say to a person that is starting now developing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a very good point. Also, there's a great comment I'm going to throw up on the screen before we move on to the next topic. Andres says, do you guys have recommended links to see React best practices? To me, it looks like React is the new jQuery, and a lot of people writing spaghetti code. To be fair, probably people writing spaghetti code in every language that exists, every framework that exists. But for one, if these fellows do have links, Andres, it looks like you're on LinkedIn. I will find you. I will DM you the links that they have, because we don't really have a way to do show notes. But yeah, if you have, not even necessarily links, although legit, if you guys have something, I'll definitely send it his way. But if you have any, do you have resources, whether it is a blog or maybe a YouTube channel or anything of just if you are kind of learning React and want to do it right. Do you have any tips or any resources, anything like that can help out Andres?
Yeah, totally. The first thing that I would say to someone that is trying to learn React is learn JavaScript first. You won't understand React or whatever front-end framework or back-end framework that you are using without understanding the language. And someone asked me what would be the best route to learn React, and I always say learn JavaScript. You will write better code if you understand how JavaScript works. You will write better React applications if you understand how JavaScript works. That's my advice to.
Yeah, and I mean the same was true. He mentions jQuery. The same was true with jQuery.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I tried to jump straight into jQuery without knowing too much. I didn't know what was going on with the DOM, and that I ran into a lot of problems. So I had to go back. I had to learn JavaScript first, and then go back, and my jQuery was better. So it's the same principle. But yeah, if anyone else has some tips or advice that we can give, like I said, I loved. It's the reason that I like doing the live streams is because we can help in real time.
Yeah, I would add just agree with what was said. You have to learn JavaScript, not only whatever you do on a daily basis, but the fundamentals of JavaScript. I think React is difficult. messes a lot with the fundamentals of the language. So don't try to do good React code without knowing, for example, what empty arrays plus empty array equals to. So let's learn about also some paradigms such as immutables. Lots of the history of the previous libraries can be applied to good React code. So I would go on the concepts like single source of truth, like before trying to learn Redux, please understand what Flux is, and just the fundamentals before going to advanced libraries. React is an advanced.
Absolutely, I think that's absolutely the right answer. Francisco, anything to add?
Yes, I would say, like, for example, the greater source is what React teams has for us, because the React docs, because they have been around with the community, and they fix what maybe is not easy to understand in their documentation. I would say that if we see, for example, how they structure the documentation, they leave the performance, they leave the best practices for later, because they want you to understand first the basics. So I agree with you, because we need to understand first the language before understanding the maybe another library, and also understanding JavaScript and then understanding React will help you to also let's say, how do you say, like, for example, when you go to another library, for example, another framework like Vue, you will understand and you will appreciate maybe sometimes how React do things, because they all want to deal with the same JavaScript problems, but they do it in different way, and that's something exciting when you see how one framework do it this way and how another has another approach. It all starts with JavaScript. I think the best thing is what my partner said, that first start with JavaScript, and then good practices will come with time and with experience.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw up his next comment. We do have to move on in a bit, because I actually really want to get to our bonus question. But it looks like Andres has about 10 years of experience with JavaScript. He's saying he's not seeing standards. I threw the comment up. He doesn't want to have to use reusable components together with non-reusable, and doesn't see standards. Is there anything you can kind of add to this?
Sure. We will have to jump back to the beginning of the stream, where we were talking about the atomic architecture. There are multiple architecture in JavaScript. One of those is the atomic one. Using reusable with no reusable component, it's not that is bad. It's something that happens from time to time. But I usually try to architect my components in an atomic way, because in the end you are trying to, as you're saying, you are trying to reuse some components across your application and try to minimize the amount of code that you write.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I understand better, maybe, Andres. And I would say that, for example, sometimes having reusable components and not reusable components is out of our hands, because, for example, if we use atomic design, from design, atomic architecture, from the design we can get the components that are being used and reused, and from there we build the components. And sometimes the design itself uses components that maybe are not reusable. So I would say that don't feel bad if that happens, because it's something that sometimes is out of our hands. But I think you are in the right path if you want to always to be, like, have that in mind, maybe I will be reusing this. And I think the atomic uh, architecture will help you with this. You can start from there, and you will see that will add value to you.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just threw up another comment, a recommendation of a best practices book from our YouTube comments. So that is very helpful. I appreciate that. So we have some time. So let's go ahead and move on to our bonus topics. And I actually almost put this in the regular section because I was afraid we wouldn't get to it because I think talking about common performance mistakes is really important. Luckily, we do have some time. So without further ado, again, I don't know React myself, but just to prep a little bit, I was reading about it. And it does seem like it is a thing, right? There are common kind of bottlenecks and all kinds of things, but obviously solutions and ways around them. So anyone wants to take it away with just some of those common issues you've run into in your years, and then again, something that you wish you could kind of tell yourself when you were learning that would have saved you some time. Anyone's welcome to take it away.
Yes, I would like to start.
Please do.
Well, for me, working with performance, the first thing we need to do is measure. And if I could go back and talk with myself and give an advice, I would say first, you need to handle and to know your tools that helps you with profiling. For example, React has a profiling tool in the browser that is amazing, and if we know what is causing the problem, we can be in the good path easier. So that will be like my suggestion before talking about performance or maybe dealing with performance is you need to measure and to see if what you are trying to achieve is really what is causing that problem in performance.
True.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
Ivan, Giancarlos?
Well,
You have to. You can go on.
okay. For me, it's that if I would have to go back to my when I was starting React or at least working with performance,
Yeah.
I would say to myself, use more React memo and React memo and React callback to reduce the amount of calls of functions that you are using. I would say that to myself.
Yeah. Awesome.
Also,
Ivan?
oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I would just add another common mistake on performance on optimization, which is premature optimization. As Francisco said, you should always measure, and it's by measuring that you find the bottlenecks of your application. So don't try to just memorize anything. Just memorize all components, all properties, every single regulation, because there's an overhead in memorizing as well. The first overhead on storing that data, and then for checking the quality of this data. So there's no point in just optimizing stuff you don't even know if it's a bottleneck or not. So please don't do premature optimization. Do your code, test it, profile it, learn how to properly use the profile tools in your browser, and that's it. And then start optimizing.
Yes, and I would say also that, for example, know JavaScript, because sometimes we want to optimize and we are sending an object as a prop, and it will be in every render will be different. So if we understand how JavaScript handle reference and also handle types, we will save a lot of time debugging and also working with performance.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. And yeah, we still have time. We have another bonus one, so we can go ahead and move on. Oh, wrong direction. Talking about some kind of frameworks within the ecosystem, Gatsby, Next.js. Really just interested, curious if you've worked with some of these or all of these. or even if there's more to add to the list. Just kind of your thoughts on them. Times when you'd use them, I think, is an interesting question for folks that aren't that familiar with them. Just, they want to, okay, so it exists, Next exists, Gatsby exists. Why and when do I use them? Another thing to learn. Yeah, and also, like I said, if you've have experience working with Gatsby or something like that, just kind of hearing your experience with it and how you've used it. Again, same drill. Anyone that wants to take it away is more than welcome to.
Sure. I would like to point out that from the previous comment from Andre, if you would like to architecture your React code, these frameworks will help you a lot. For example, Next.js will help you to structure your component, to have your components in one folder, to have your pages in another folder, and then you will have your pages composed based on those components, and you see that, and then you start to seeing how every little piece that you built as a component are put together as a page, and you will see that there is a cleaner way that I would say to my I would say so.
Awesome. Yeah. Ivan, Francisco, kind of opinions on that? Have you worked with Next and Gatsby?
Yeah, I've been working with Next for a couple of years, finishing some projects alone, some with teams, and I think it depends on the project, depends on the requirements, just like any other framework. A framework is a very big decision to take on a project. But something I would like to point out about Next.js is that I don't know if you guys have watched the last Next.js conf, but I really like the way they are helping moving React forward. They are creating standards. They have nice initiatives like SWR, I don't like how Verso is a big player in React, and even if we're not familiar with Next.js or we're not working with Next.js, we should definitely watch out what they are working on, because they're defining lots of paths for React. So that's why I think this subject is important.
That's awesome. Good insight. Francisco, opinions?
Well, I would like to add that, for example, us X team, we use Gatsby to create some of our projects. And for example, the ones the page that handles our curriculums, and that is built in Gatsby, and it's been like a really good experience using it. I would say that, for example, we don't want to to kill a mosquito with a gun. If you are trying to create like a web page that is based on content, because these are the great tool to start. For example, if you want to build your own page for your own portfolio, I think this could be two good solutions, because the content won't change a lot and it will load fast for the persons who will have the experience. And as Ivan mentioned, that's what excites me the most, that React is interested in working with this kind of frameworks to for example, React Suspense is something that is being thought to help this kind of frameworks, because they want to give the support to the community that, hey, we are interested in server-side rendering and we are interested in making internet fast. So
yeah.
If, for example, if you are using React, don't be afraid to use Gatsby or Next.js, because React community, it will be there with you, so you won't be alone.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've seen great things. As you mentioned, working, Gatsby being used at X Team. It seems pretty cool, and I think that's a really good point that you made, Ivan. Even if you were not working, with it directly, that Next is doing a lot of good stuff within that space in general, within React, and just kind of the future of sort of the JavaScript ecosystem in general. So, hats off to them, even if they're not, you're not working directly with Next. So good stuff. We hit almost exactly an hour, which is our goal, which means that we've covered all the bonus questions, everything. We've done it all. Our wrap up is simply, we have folks watching right now on YouTube. If they want to jump over and follow us on LinkedIn, and vice versa, if you're watching on LinkedIn, want to give us a follow over on X Team, those are the URLs. Kind of getting into my my YouTuber thing, like, subscribe, hit the notification button. But no, it was a very hit all the buttons. But no, for real, thank all three of you for
the right side.
It's hard to know which direction you're going. But no, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to talk about JavaScript. Like I said, super happy we got to talk about JavaScript or React 18, the beta stuff coming up. I think it was awesome that we were able to talk about performance too. I think that's big for any developer, but like I said, I always care about the junior devs, because I know it can be a struggle at times, and so it's nice to have senior developers that can kind of point you in the right way. And also very appreciative of the folks who are in the chat asking questions. We're trying to do our best to answer. So yeah, Giancarlos, Francisco, Ivan, thank you so much. And for KMFcast, I'm Caleb Brown, and we'll see you next time.